Welcome back, kindergartners, to Chapter 4 of The Wizard of Oz. So in Chapter 3, we actually got to meet another one of the main characters. And if you think back, we left a lot of our words right up here. We left the Scarecrow, and we put it in blue because the Scarecrow is from Munchkin Land. And Munchkin Land on our map happens to be the blue area of the land of the East. And that's where Dorothy's house landed, and that's where Dorothy's house killed the Wicked Witch of the East. So as Dorothy was going through Munchkin Land on the Yellow Brick Road, on her way to the Emerald City to ask the Wizard of Oz how she should get back to Kansas, she found the Scarecrow in a cornfield. And there he is. Now, we also talked about how in the book he's dressed in all blue, which is why we left his words in blue. And in the movie, he is not. In the movie, since he's in a costume, he is wearing different clothing, right? So chapter 4 is called The Road Through the Forest. And I don't believe we'll meet any other main characters in this chapter, but it's definitely going to further their journey along on the Yellow Brick Road. Here's how we left them. There's Dorothy with her silver shoes and cute little Toto. And there is, of course, the beloved Scarecrow, who is traveling now with Dorothy because he is asking for brains. He does not have any brains. After a few hours, the road began to be rough, and the walking grew so difficult that the Scarecrow often stumbled over the yellow bricks, which here were very uneven. Sometimes, indeed, they were broken or missing altogether, leaving holes that Toto jumped across and Dorothy walked around. As for the Scarecrow, having no brains, he just walked straight ahead. And so he stepped into the holes and fell at full length on all of the hard bricks. It never hurt him, however, and Dorothy would pick him up and set him upon his feet again while he joined her in laughing merrily at his own mishap. The farms were not nearly so well cared for here as those farther back had been. There were fewer houses and fewer fruit trees. And the farther they went, the more dismal and lonesome the country became. At noon, they sat down by the roadside near a little brook, and Dorothy opened her basket and got out some bread. She offered a piece to the Scarecrow, but he refused. "No, I'm never hungry," he said. "And it's a lucky thing I'm not, for my mouth is only painted, and if I should cut a hole in it so I could eat, well, the straw I'm stuffed with would come out, and that would spoil the shape of my head." Dorothy saw this at once to be true, so she only nodded and went on eating her bread. Well, what do you notice about that that's interesting? He said he can't eat because his mouth is only painted on. Right, he's talking. So how is he talking if his mouth is just painted on? But again, that's one of the magical parts of the story. Tell me something about yourself and the country you came from, said the Scarecrow when Dorothy had finished her dinner. So she told him all about Kansas and how gray everything was there, and how the cyclone had carried her to this strange land of Oz. The Scarecrow listened carefully and said, "Well, I cannot understand why you should wish to leave this beautiful country and go back to that dry, gray place you call, Kansas." "Well, of course you can't. That's because you have no brains," answered the girl. "No matter how dreary and gray our homes are, we people that have fresh flesh and blood, well, we rather live there than in any other country, even if it is beautiful. There's no place like home." The Scarecrow sighed. "Oh, of course I cannot understand it," he said. If your heads were stuffed with straw like mine, you would probably all live in beautiful places. And then Kansas would have no people at all. It's fortunate for Kansas that you have brains." "Won't you tell me a story while we are resting?" asked the child. The Scarecrow looked at her reproachfully and answered, "Well, my life has been so short that I really know nothing whatsoever. I was only made the day before yesterday. What happened in the world before that time is all unknown to me. Luckily, when the farmer made my head, one of the first things he did was paint on my ears. So I heard what was going on. There was another Munchkin with him, and the first thing I heard was the farmer saying, 'How do you like those ears?' 'They aren't straight,' answered the other. 'Never mind,' said the farmer. 'Their ears just the same,' which was true enough. 'Now I'll make the eyes,' said the farmer. So he painted my right eye. And as soon as it was finished, I found myself looking at him and at everything around me with a great deal of curiosity, for this was my first glimpse at the world. That's a rather pretty eye,' remarked the Munchkin, who was watching the farmer. 'Blue paint is a good color for eyes.' 'I think I'll make the other eye a little bigger,' said the farmer. And when the second eye was done, I could see much better than before. Then he made my nose and my mouth, but I did not speak, because at that time I didn't know what a mouth was for. I had fun watching them make my body and my arms and legs, and then they fastened on my head. And at last I felt very proud, for I thought I was just as good of a man as anyone. 'Well, this fellow will scare the crows fast enough,' said the farmer. 'He looks just like a man.' 'Why, he is a man,' said the other, and I quite agreed with him. The farmer carried me under his arm to the cornfield and set me up on a tall stick, right where you found me. He and his friend soon after walked away and left me alone. I did not like to be deserted this way, so I tried to walk after them, but my feet did not touch the ground, so I was forced to stay on that pole." So here's a picture of the Scarecrow with the two men that made him, the farmer and the other Munchkin who was giving advice. And you see his face is painted on in the book. And here are Dorothy and the Scarecrow walking along, and the Scarecrow's telling her a story, and she's telling him all about Kansas. So they have very different lives, but they're still very good friends. They're becoming very good friends by talking about each other's lives. It was a lonely life to lead, for I had nothing to think of, having been made such a little while before. Many crows and other birds flew into the cornfield, but as soon as they saw me, they flew away again, thinking I was a Munchkin. And this did please me and made me feel like I was an important person. But then, by and by, an old crow flew near me, and after looking at me carefully, he perched upon my shoulder and said, I wonder if that farmer thought to fool me in this clumsy manner. Any crow of sense can see you're only stuffed with straw." And then he hopped down at my feet, and he ate all the corn he wanted. Well, all the other birds, seeing he was not harmed, came to eat the corn too. So in a short time, there was a great flock of crows all about me. So you know a scarecrow gets its name because it's supposed to scare the crows away. So farmers put scarecrows up in cornfields. That way, the birds will actually think it's a real person. So at first, the scarecrow was doing a great job and birds stayed away. But then all of a sudden, one crow realized this is just a stuffed man. And all the other birds now are eating the corn. Well, after the crows had gone, I thought all this over, and I decided I would try really hard to get some brains, and by good luck, you came along and pulled me off the stake. And from what you say, I'm sure the Great Oz will give me brains as soon as we get to the Emerald City. Oh, I do hope so, said Dorothy earnestly, since you seem very anxious to have them. Oh, I am anxious, returned the Scarecrow. It's such an uncomfortable feeling to know that one is a fool. Well, said the little girl, let us go. And she handed the basket to the Scarecrow. There were no fences at all by the roadside now, and the land was rough and untilled. Toward evening, they came to a great forest, where the trees grew so big and close together that their branches met over the road of yellow brick. It was almost dark under the trees, for the branches shut out all the daylight. But the travelers did not stop. They went straight into the forest. Well, if this road goes in, then it must come out, said the Scarecrow. And as the Emerald City is at the other end of this yellow brick road, we must go wherever it leads us. Well, of course, anyone would know that, said Dorothy. Well, certainly. That's why I know it, returned the Scarecrow. If I needed brains to figure it out, I should have never said it. After an hour or so, the light faded away, and they found themselves stumbling along in the darkness. Dorothy could not see at all, but Toto could, for some dogs can see very well in the dark. And the Scarecrow declared that he could see just as well as by day. So she took hold of his arm and managed to get along fairly well. If you see any house or any place where we can pass the night, Dorothy said, you must tell me, for it's very uncomfortable walking in the dark. Soon after, the Scarecrow stopped. Well, look there, I see a little cottage to the right of us, he said. It's built of logs and branches. Shall we go there? Oh, yes, please, answered the child. I'm all tired out. So the Scarecrow led her through the trees until they reached the cottage. And Dorothy entered and found a bed of dried leaves in one corner. She lay down at once, and with Toto beside her, she soon fell into a sound sleep. The Scarecrow, who was never tired, stood up in another corner and waited patiently until morning came. So here's the little house that they find. And that is the end of chapter 5. And you should also realize that in that chapter, we heard some very magical words. We heard the magical words, there's no place like home. Dorothy says that to the Scarecrow right away. He's wondering why she wants to go back to Kansas. So why does she want to go back to a place that's so gray and dreary? And she says that because us humans, we know that truly there is no other feeling like home. Home is where we're safe. Home is where we sleep. Home is where our family is. So that's why she says there's no place like home. And for your whole entire life, you will hear people say things like there's no place like home, or you'll see it on signs. I have a sign at the top of our stairs in our house that says there's no place like home. So that's something that you will hear for a long time. So that's where we're going to stop today. Chapter 5 is called The Rescue of the Tin Woodman. And so that's where we will actually get to meet another character, another main character. And let me see here, if we look through our picture book, let's see where we are. Picture books don't always have all the pictures. In fact, this one pretty much skipped that chapter. This is the last picture that it has before the next chapter. And it's just Dorothy and the Scarecrow becoming good friends. Now, did you at all find it strange that they just find a random cottage and they decide to stay the night there? That's another reason where we can tell that this story is make-believe, because the two main characters find a random house and they decide to stay the night there. We all know that that's not a safe choice. So that's how we also can know that this story is definitely make-believe in this great land of Oz. And I was trying to see if maybe they had the little hut on your map that they find, but I don't believe that they do. I don't believe that's on your map. So they must still be in the blue country, headed on the yellow brick road to the Emerald City. All right, so thank you for joining me for chapter 4, and tune back in tomorrow for chapter 5. And now you know why I say, as always, there's no place like home. Bye.